After an emotional visit to his father's homeland of Kenya, Barack Obama has arrived in Ethiopia. The US president was greeted at the airport by the Ethiopian Prime Minister for this first visit to the country by a sitting US president. Ethiopia has become a key US ally after decades of instability, and bilateral talks are due to be held on trade and security. The situation in volatile Sudan is also due to be discussed. However, rights groups are also hoping that Obama will raise concerns about Ethiopia's human rights record.
Remember this 2015 divine warning. Rainbow over Addis Ababa upon President Obama's arrival. Until President Obama's visit to Addis Ababa 10 years ago, no sitting U.S. president, no Russian leader or Orthodox Church Patriarch, and no Vatican Pope ever visited Ethiopia, the oldest Christian nation in the world. Ask yourselves why. Ethiopia was one of the first African countries to establish diplomatic relations with the United States, Russia, and the Vatican. The first African country to establish diplomatic relations with Russia was Ethiopia. In 1898, a Russian delegation visited Ethiopia to initiate these relations, and in 1902, a permanent diplomatic mission was established. The renowned Russian poet Alexander Pushkin has an Ethiopian connection through his great-grandfather, Abram Petrovich Gannibal, who was of African origin. Gannibal was brought to Russia as a slave and later became a general in the Russian army, serving Peter the Great. Abram Gannibal was enslaved by the Ottomans and brought from Istanbul as a gift to the Russian Emperor Peter the Great. Peter freed him, baptized him into the Orthodox Faith, becoming his godfather. In those days, this meant a very close relationship. He received an excellent education, became a military engineer and general-in-chief of the Russian Imperial Army. While Pushkin and a Russian state or church leader never visited Ethiopia, Pushkin's Ethiopian ancestry is a recognized part of his heritage and is celebrated in both Russia and Ethiopia. U.S.-Ethiopian relations were established in 1903 after meetings in Ethiopia between Emperor Menelik II and an emissary of President Theodore Roosevelt. Emperors Menelik II, Haile Selassie I, President Mengistu Hailemariam and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali are all anti-Christian, anti-Ethiopia agents of the Edomite West and the Ishmaelite Middle East. The Battle of Adwa, 29 February 1 March 1896, is of huge significance for Africa in that the decimation of the continent could not be completed. Aksumite Ethiopia turned out to be the last man standing. The genocidal Menelik II Oromo regime was installed by Anglo-Saxons plus French plus Italians plus Germans, after murdering the last true Ethiopian and Christian Emperor Johannes IV, on March 10, 1889. After the Italian defeat at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, the Edomite Roman Italians, French, Germans and Americans begun infiltrating the Ethiopian state. They initially killed the great Christian Emperor Johannes IV, his son Ras Mengesha and General Ras Alula, and gradually put the genocidal Oromo warlord Menelik LL and his Oromo/Oromara associates into power, who treasonously gave them the historical Ethiopian territories like Eritrea and Djibouti. Just like today, with the help of the Oromo Menelik II, the Romans were able to massacre and starve to death over 1 million northern Ethiopian Orthodox Christians who were the main forces behind the Italian humiliation. Yes, with this the First World War started in Ethiopia, and a few years after the Ethiopia adventure, the Romans/Europeans had to pay a very heavy price for their jihad against Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. Between 1914 and 1918, the total number of military and civilian casualties in World War I was around 40 million. There were 20 million deaths and 21 million wounded. Let's connect the dots. Barack Hussein Obama plus Egypt's Mohammed Morsi plus billionaire Sheikh Mohammed Hussein al-Amaudi plus Demik Mekonnen Hassan plus Abiy Ahmed Ali plus TPLF killed Prime Minister Meles Zenawi and Patriarch Abun Paulos, who were the builders of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. On July 26, 2015, President Barack Hussein Obama became the first sitting U.S. president to visit Ethiopia. Obama has been using his time in Africa to advocate for gay agenda. Obama arrived at Bole International Airport, Addis Ababa, to a cloudy sky marked with rainbow, a phenomenon we Ethiopian Christians relate to spirituality, had appeared over Addis sky. In fact, among Christian Ethiopians, rainbow is called Ye Mariam Mekanet, Mary's robe, literally a long scarf-like piece used by the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. Exactly a month earlier, on June 26, 2015, Pride Month, Obama Foundation highlights illuminating the 6-color version of the 666 LGBTQ+ rainbow.
So when we got back, I do remember there was one of those extraordinary sunsets. I remember him being very moved with that.
A few weeks earlier, one of my staff, a DT, had come to me with this idea that originated with Jeff Tiller, who worked in the press office.
What if we lit the White House in rainbow colors? And importantly, what if we made a commitment to do it regardless of how the Supreme Court ruled? Regardless of whether they ruled it as constitutional or unconstitutional, our government will send a message to the community and to the world that we value LGBT people and that we are on the right side of history. And Valerie took a second and she looked at me and she said, I think that's a phenomenal idea.
I couldn't have thought of any other way to better demonstrate change than through changing the color of what is an iconically recognized building the world over. As the sun went down, it became this brilliant popping color of the rainbow.
Outside of the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, there were just throngs of people. And I can only describe it as reverie. We were speechless. And it was so beautiful and touching. I can never talk about it without getting choked up as I am right now. I couldn't be more grateful than I am for that moment.
I think the fact that so many people came out to see it and have been photographed still is as real for people as the day that we first did it. Just tells you how important symbolism is.
Here was this incredibly visible sign that not only did we belong, not only were we equal under the Constitution when it comes to marriage equality, we had a president, we had an administration who clearly said, you belong, we want you, we care for you, we protect you.
There's so much more work to be done to extend the full promise of America to every American. But today we can say, in no uncertain terms, that we've made our union a little more perfect.
2 months earlier, on April 9, 2015, a rainbow came along just as President Obama's helicopter was arriving at the airport in Rastafarian Kingston, Jamaica, where he would board Air Force One for the flight to Panama. Rastafarianism is a young, Ethiopia-centered religion. The major difference between God's rainbow and the LGBT pride rainbow. The number 7 in the Bible as well as in nature show the completeness and perfectness of our Heavenly Father. The number 6, on the other hand, does not fare so well. The number is first mentioned in connection with the flood of Noah, and last mentioned with the mark of the beast and the battle of Armageddon. All judgments on sin. The mark of the beast includes 3 a success, a complete judgment on sin. How many colors in the LGBT pride rainbow? You guessed it, 6. God's rainbow, the one that he set in the sky as a sign to Noah, has 7 observable colors in it: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and indigo. The Luciferians, 11 letters, use the godly numbers, 22, which represents light, in the same way they use Noah's rainbow to shake and destroy the foundations of humanity by waging war on family, woman, and children. On May 18, 2012, President Obama invited 3 African leaders, President John Evans Atta Mills of Ghana, Prime Minister Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia and President Jakaya Kikwete of Tanzania at the G8 meeting to address a symposium on global agriculture and food security. Population control. Suddenly, all of them got sick after being around Obama. Microwaved. Obama met President Nelson Mandela only once in a Washington hotel room, on May 17, 2005, when the former South African president was in Washington and Obama was a young and newly elected Illinois senator. A photo of the meeting hangs in Obama's personal office at the White House, showing a smiling Mandela sitting on a chair, his legs outstretched, as the young senator reaches down to shake his hand. A copy of the photo also hangs in Mandela's office in Johannesburg. 4 months earlier, on January 6, 2005, Makatho Mandela, the eldest and only surviving son of former South African President Nelson Mandela, has died of AIDS. On July 16, 2012, the Muslim Brotherhood Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi visited Addis Ababa and met with His Holiness Abram Petrovich, Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. In 2012, 4 African leaders and the Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church were killed, while in office. Coronavirus, MERS-CoV. The Middle East respiratory syndrome was first identified in Babylon, Saudi Arabia in 2012. Guinea-Bissau's Malam Butsai Sen had died on January 9, 2012 in Paris at the age of 64. Malawi's Bingu wa Mutharikia died on April 5, 2012 in Lilongwe at the age of 78. President Atta Mills of Ghana died on July 24, 2012 in Accra at the age of 68. Prime Minister Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia died on August 20, probably on July 26, 2012 in Brussels at the age of 57. Susan Rice and Bill Gates were at the funeral on September 2, 2012 in Addis Ababa. 4 African leaders and a patriarch murdered in the same year within 6 months. Why is the world ignoring this news? His Holiness, Abram Petrovich, Patriarch and Catholicos of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church and Archbishop of Aksum and Ichage of the See of St. Teklahaimanot, fell asleep in the Lord in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on August 16, 2012. President of Egypt Mohamed Morsi died on June 17, 2019. First the Patriarch, and then the Prime Minister. Coincidence? I don't think so. Mohamed Morsi knew something about the death of the Patriarch and the Prime Minister, so they have to get rid of him. The genocidal war waged in Tigray, northern Ethiopia, begun 3 years after Lord Bill Gates selected Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus as Director General of the World Health Organization in 2017. Dr. Tedros is a native of war-torn Tigray region of Ethiopia.